Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to BipolarLines, the podcast where two spouses talk about navigating life, loving someone with bipolar disorder. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Laura, and tonight we are bringing you myths and misconceptions about bipolar disorder, which are numerous.
Yes,
right,
Brooke? Very, very much so. And for the record, we just came up with this topic, 5 minutes ago. So here we are. We are going to do our very best. But I think, honestly, it's a lot of things that you hear, we've heard, and with the help of research, we have some information. But before we get there, happy Mother's Day, Laura.
Yay! Happy Mother's Day, Brooke. How was your Mother's Day?
It was good. It was really good. And happy Mother's Day to all the listeners out there. We went to breakfast this morning, well, kind of brunch-ish. And then we came back home. Unfortunately, my oldest Addie had to work, so she's actually still at work right now. But then we had a wild hair, and Zoe kept saying, I need to go to the golf course, you have to practice, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, let's go. So we went. Now, mind you, we just bought a used set of golf clubs for myself and Addie to just, mess around with. Well, I messed around with those today, and let me just say I'm exhausted, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
So did you go to the driving range or to a golf course? We
went to an actual golf course, yeah, where my husband has been teaching, giving lessons and stuff like that. Yeah, it's called Springbrook Country Club. So we went there.
Oh, fun.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was fun, let me just say this, because I actually made contact with the ball a hell of a lot more than I thought I was going to. So that was cool. I had great teachers.
Yeah, seriously. Have you ever
teachers.
I mean, Jeremy, you've said was like a professional golfer. Did you ever play, or did he ever teach? No. Did you ever try?
Yes, he taught me one time, and at that point I was ready to throw clubs. I was like, this is not okay with me. It didn't go well. Did not go well. Today went really well. So in fact, Zoe was like, you're showing me up. I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. But it was a lot of fun. And then, then we went for ice cream, and then we came home, and here we are. So It was great. What about you?
Wait, before I talk about me quick, when your not going great comment reminds me of the time Cody tried to teach me how to snowboard. It's a really funny story.
Oh, tell me.
Was he diagnosed or undiagnosed bipolar at that time?
Undiagnosed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me say this. It didn't go great because of him. It went terrible because of me.
You were the culprit.
I was the culprit. No, I have always said that my husband is a phenomenal teacher. He has the patience that I've never seen before when he's coaching, no matter what he's coaching or teaching. Softball, golf, you name it. I look at him and I'm like, wow. Like how I remember, I was ready to throw a club. This was years ago. Break the club, scream. I mean, I was just so frustrated. And he was just like, babe, it's all right.
Aww.
It just takes time. Take a breath.
That's
it's
cool.
Okay. He's just so cool, calm, and collected. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? So yeah, no, it was me. I was the problem. Then had nothing to do with him.
That reminds me of that TikTok sound. It's me. Something I'm the problem. It's me. Yep. You could do that one about golf. That's funny.
Absolutely. Yep.
My Mother's Day, we did most of the stuff for me yesterday. Today we just went to my brother's. Yeah, we're filming on Mother's Day for people who are wondering. I went to my brother's house and we celebrated my mom and, all the things. And so that was fun and got to see family.
Cool.
I was telling you a little bit earlier that yesterday, actually Cody used that word too, which was interesting after I talked to you, but he was like, I think I'm having a trauma response. And I was like, ooh. I think you are too.
Yep.
And I surprised that, I don't know, he's not, unfortunately, the most self-aware guy. I think we could have prevented a lot of manic episodes if he were, and that's not a slam against him.
Sure.
In some ways, it's kind of good he's not self-aware, because I feel like when you're too self-aware, you can get obsessive compulsive behaviors, and, there's downfall, there's positives and negatives to everything.
Sure.
So, it's not a slam that he's not self-aware. But there's the fact that he recognized that. But yeah, he just went like way over and beyond yesterday. But then it was stressing him out that it wasn't happening the way he had envisioned it in his mind, and because it wasn't going the way he had envisioned it. And it's so silly, Brooke, because I'm literally a card girl. Like, if you just get me a card and you spent 5 minutes and really was like, this card reminds me of Laura, you made my whole day. Like, I love gifts. I would love a gift, but like, if you didn't have that, just a card, and he knows that about me, which he always gets a card. But yeah, he just, I don't know. He wanted to make it so good. And he did tell me later that he thinks it's because, like, a lot of holidays he hasn't been available, or he couldn't make it good, or he's missed some holidays, or and so he just wants to like make it up to me when he can, but then he put all this undue stress on himself. So anyways, it ended up being fine. Yeah.
Love his heart.
Yeah.
Love his heart.
Oh, and then this morning I have to tell you.
Yes.
I did not tell you this. So I think I've mentioned before that we might have some, what does my therapist call it? She says narcissistic tendencies, possibly. She doesn't like to label anyone who's not actually been labeled. In his mom, which I've talked about before, but he did get her a gift, and he did get her a card, and she had told him earlier in the week that she would be home this morning. She goes out of town to work, and so she was leaving tonight. And so before we left for my brother's house, he tells the kids, like, get dressed. We're going to go to grandma's house. Like, it's Mother's Day and she really wants to see you guys. And they were back in 30 minutes. And I was like, wow. I'm like, that was fast. And I was like, what'd she say? And my son was like, oh, she wasn't home. Like, of course she wasn't. Like, this is literally out of the playbook. Like, it's just unbelievable to me, Brooke, how much of this is out of a playbook, And so it's just like the contrast. He leaves the house like, oh, it's Mother's Day. Like, grandma wants to see you. And then she's not there. And then, okay, so she did have an excuse.
How sad.
Right? She did have an excuse. The excuse was the flights and the this and that were looking sketchy. So instead of leaving this evening, she decided to take a morning one. But like, it's Mother's Day and you had already told him you would be there. So whatever. I mean, like, it's just a testament to every time Cody, when I first met him, told a story of how egregious his childhood was, I would always try to excuse it away, thinking I was helping. Like, well, maybe the flights really were, like, we're not really in, we don't really fly all the time. Like, I would have excused it away. And now my answer was like, of course she wasn't. Yep. Like, and it just, I feel like I've told my therapist before, I don't know if it helps or not, but Cody was always invalidated about being the black sheep. Like, that's how family units like that work. Like, he's the weird one. He's the one with the off story. He's the problem. Everyone else agrees he's the problem. And the fact that I would try and excuse it away, I thought I was helping, but I feel like I was doing the same thing. It was almost like, well, it's really you misinterpreting the situation. Like, no mother would be like that. Like, I would always do that. And now my strategy is like, yep, your experience is valid, and how you perceived what happened to you was 100% exactly what happened to you. And you are not wrong, and you are not crazy, and I see it now. And wow. Just wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's awful though, because I mean, you were doing what you knew how to do to like soften the blow for him, right? That's how you thought you were helping.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think instead, now that I know what I know now, I realize it was adding to the invalidation of his experience without realizing it. And now, I feel like, so anyway, I just had to mention that because I'm just like, whatever, dude. But
that really sucks.
Yeah, but he made my Mother's Day really great. So
love it. I love that. I love that. Well, one quick note that on Thursday? Yeah, it was Thursday. Jeremy was transitioning into mania Thursday.
Ooh, you did not tell me this.
I did not. It was a weird, I don't even know how to describe it other than by saying, like, physically he was manic. He had manic eyes. He was talking. He was shaking, like couldn't sit still, all the things. But he was still able to like communicate his thoughts and express to me that he was scared because he was feeling manic, right? Expressed to me that he wanted to leave the house, expressed to me that he wanted to start a fight and leave, but also, I don't want to start a fight. I don't want to leave. I don't want to make bad decisions. It was this, and he, I almost said unfortunately, it's not unfortunately, it's just him, but he's super self-aware. Okay. Yeah. Hasn't always been, but just is now, thanks to therapy. And well, he's just, that's who he is now. Anyway.
Yeah.
And his always comes on first physically. I think I've mentioned that before. There's really no buildup. His sleep was the same. Now, the only thing I will say is that like he had gone to bed later than usual, but we had like, not because of him, but because we had stuff going on, right? So he wasn't going to bed at his 9:30 time. It was like 10:30 or 11, right? So, okay, fine. But that wasn't, how do I say this without, it wasn't like he wasn't staying up late doing things.
Yeah.
He was just late, going to bed late because we were busy doing things. So anyway, that was Monday, Tuesday of this past week. So yeah, Thursday, he hid it from me so well, Laura. That's what scared me. I wasn't looking for it necessarily, but he hid it from me because I had I need to be mindful here of my own personal life, work life. I had an important meeting Thursday at work, and I was pretty stressed about it this week. So he didn't want to add any stress to my plate. God. So he didn't want to tell me. So he was kind of festering for hours on end, right? But he was trying, like he went to bed. He was trying to stay in bed. He was trying to do all these things. And I did notice that he wasn't as responsive as he usually had been or usually is. But I was like, he's just trying to make sure that like I'm not reading anything into his responses. Like he knows this meeting is really important. So, and as soon as it was over, he was like, I'm really sorry. I've held this in all day. I can't do it anymore, but I think I'm manic. I'm really, really struggling. Like, how far away are you from home? I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I need to lay down. I don't want to lay, it was just, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay. All right. I'm on my way home. He's like, please don't rush, but also rush. I'm like, yeah, I work an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half.
No, this situation is not ideal.
No. I finally got home and he was gone. And I was like, no, please, no.
Right.
He went to pick up pizzas and cake and came back. And I was like, okay, all right. So we spent Thursday, Friday, and Saturday up until this morning managing mania with lots of Seroquel, lots of medication, well, an antipsychotic, I should say that. And that's his PRN dose for mania, right?
Yeah, he doesn't normally take an antipsych, right?
He does, but it's not this dosage. It's a significantly higher dosage, right? And it was a lot because he did not want to be around you. And it was a good thing he didn't want to be around you. Because again, he was fighting all the things with mania. I've never seen him do this before. I've never seen it not transition before like this, where he's physically manic. He's been hypomanic and he doesn't have the manic eyes like this. He doesn't have that fight or flight going on. Like he's just like kind of productive in a way, but also not, and kind of irritable, but not angry. So it was interesting to say the least. And this morning he went to, well, let me back up. Last night, he went to bed at 8, I guess, and he slept all night, and I had to wake him up at like 9:30, I guess, this morning. And even then, he was like, and I'm like,
oh, that's so good.
I think we've made it. And we had a great day. So
that's so interesting. You and I, mine was a couple weeks ago. I think on the last podcast or the one before, I was saying the exact same thing happened. Like, once we're in a manic the train doesn't ever stop until like a hospitalization. But Cody was managing it with sleep medication, which was something new that he's never done before. We don't have PRN anti-psych, which is interesting.
Yeah. Only for mania. That's the only thing he uses it for.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely, if you haven't talked to his psych about that, like, do it, because the sleep med, like, that's what I was telling you whenever Cody was dealing with it. I'm like, if you can get him to sleep,
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly.
Just get him to sleep,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what we did with Jeremy. Now, he didn't want to take the meds to go to sleep the first night. He was like, no, I don't want to do this. I'll do it after I eat. It was like this cat and mouse game. And I was like, okay, we can do this. We can do this. We can do this. And I was like, okay, I'll get you food. He was like, I'll get my plate in a minute, Yeah, okay. All right. I need to pump the brakes.
Do you think that, like, I've talked before, bipolar episodes always have a trigger, and sometimes we can't identify what the trigger is. Sometimes we can. It's like very obvious. Yep. And so like for this, and I know I already asked you this over text message, but now in hindsight with this new information, do you feel like Mother's Day is a could be, maybe you don't even know, but like, do you feel like a holiday could be a trigger for Jeremy, like Mother's Day?
Yeah, I think a holiday could absolutely be a trigger for him. I'm not so sure Mother's Day necessarily is, but I think it actually had everything to do with him getting ready to start a new medication for ADHD, like chomping at the bit, wanting to get medicated for ADHD, because he has really, really bad, like, executive paralysis, and he has OCD, right? So when he gets stuck in this mindset that he's been stuck in, he could walk by trash and not pick it up. And it's not because he doesn't want to.
Right.
He acknowledges that trash exists in the floor. It's become this cycle of like, well, your house is a disaster, so you don't deserve anything good, sort of dynamic. So it doesn't go well. So he can no longer handle not being managed for ADHD, not being medicated for ADHD. So he's really looking forward to that. And he got the medication that day, and well, he got it called in. And anyway, it was the med possibility. And also I think he got paid for golf lessons. So it was money and like a stimulating medication. I think that was the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Well, I'm so glad that worked out that way and that you were able to have a good Mother's Day. That's great, bro.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. And I hope everybody else, because you'll be hearing this after Mother's Day, had a fantastic Mother's Day. If not, it's okay. We've been there, right? I mean, holidays can be absolutely triggering, like Laura mentioned. So give yourself time, give yourself grace, and just, remember, this is something that I've had to learn, like specifically for Mother's Day. It's not about them. It's about you and celebrating yourself. And if they can't be involved, don't force them to be involved with something that will ruin the celebration. Enjoy the day for you. Enjoy the day for you.
Yeah. Cody said something yesterday that was like so heartbreaking to me. He was like celebrating me and just, doing all the nice stuff. And then he had said this comment. He was like, I wish I had a mom like you are. Oh. And it just broke my heart. And I was like, I wish you had too. And I was like, but you know what? Like you created this whole little family now on your own, who do love you the way that you deserve to have been loved, Yeah. It's just absolutely. Like so sad. Like, sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick, but I have done a poll on my TikTok before, and this topic fascinates me, and I don't see the research out there on it. And I think it's because I've read one textbook where researchers said in the 60s or 70s, the public isn't willing to have this conversation yet, but it is like, what is the trauma and parental trauma contribution to a mental illness? Because right now we're chalking it all up to genetics. Right now it's like, well, bipolar ran in our family, but did trauma run in your family? Did perpetuating generational trauma cycles run in your family? And then because the trauma, like, is it the genetics, or is it like the trauma of, and like, why are all these people scapegoats? Like, your husband isn't with you've said before, with his mom, but he is with his dad. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and now Jeremy just suddenly has this low sense of self-worth and has bipolar disorder. Or I was just watching the other day, there's like this funny young something 20-year-old. She's very energetic, enigmatic, like she's charismatic, and she's been posting stuff on TikTok. She blew up. She's from Denver, which is why I was watching her, and I just thought she was so funny. And like she would be like, do you guys want to know the tea and the drama from this past weekend? Because it's not your tea, it's not your trauma, you don't even know me, these are people you never met, so let's get going. And like it was so like pulling you in. And then she recently crashed and now she's homeless, and she was explaining why, and it's because of her mother. And she's saying like, I literally think my mother's a narcissist. And then people in the comments are like, oh well, she's this woman, this content creator on TikTok has also said she's bipolar. And I'm like, how funny. Another person that has bipolar disorder with some narcissistic parent who is like, just why is this, and how prevalent of this is a thing. And I just keep going back to that textbook where it's like the public isn't ready to have this conversation yet, because if we blame parents, we don't want to parent blame. But what if it is, Brooke? Like, what if it is the trauma?
Sure. I think it's very possible. I mean, trauma alters your brain's chemistry. So like, it's very possible. And also, you know, I think relative to BPD, borderline personality disorder.
Well, that is in the research. Yes. That at least is there for BPD.
That is there. But it's acknowledging that, you know, being predisposed to, you know, maybe being a more sensitive child and having a neglectful parent, an emotionally neglectful parent, and especially ones who, oh, I'm so proud of you. And then they pull it right back and express that they were never proud of you. I'm not saying they said those words, but like, that's kind of the situation. You pair that with a person that has, or a kid that has, you know, that emotional predisposition. And that's what leads to a lot of BPD diagnoses. So, I mean, I think it is absolutely possible, I'll put it that way, that childhood trauma and the lack of ability to process said trauma during the most important time of that individual's life in growth. So when they're 8 to 15 specifically in the adolescent years, like I think that is when a lot of the things happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, just like, and it's not, guys, I'm not a doctor. This is not a known cause of bipolar disorder. No. It's not. So I'm not trying to say it is. This is simply my observations as a spouse and someone who runs a TikTok with multiple people who also have spouses with bipolar or people with bipolar themselves. And I've never had, I can literally say this, I have never had I should do a poll. I'm going to do a poll after this.
You really should, yeah.
Like,
do it.
Please tell me, do you have bipolar and did not experience childhood trauma? I would love to. I would love to know the unicorn.
Tell me who you are.
Tell me who you are. Because
how few of you are in there? 2, 1, maybe none. Okay, yeah, no, that's a really great point.
I just like, and so just the fact that he recognized it this time as a trauma response, but sometimes I wonder, like, had I invalidated it, what is the narrative in his head then? Where I'm like, well, no, I think your mom really was like, you know, just stressed about the flight. And then what is the narrative that goes on in his head? Because he loves me and appreciates me and respects my opinion. The only narrative that could be in your head is like, well, clearly there is something wrong with me because even Laura doesn't see it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I feel like the narrative has to be if it's not. So anyway, sorry. That was just like a tangent. And I do want to
No, I think it's important. I think it's important. Yeah. Absolutely. It's just, it's definitely interesting. Okay, well, speaking of bipolar disorder.
That is a myth at the current, actually, that's a good lead-in. It is still a myth that childhood trauma, like, causes bipolar disorder, from far as I know. Like, right now, the research and evidence shows that it's largely genetic and, right? I think so. Yep. I think that's what I've read.
Yep, largely genetic, and sometimes it can wake up due to drug use specifically.
Yes. Julie Fast talks a lot about epigenetics. And
Yes.
so even if there are environmental factors that might have caused quote unquote bipolar, it's an epigenetic, meaning that you were genetically predisposed to getting tripped into bipolar disorder. So that's how she describes it.
Yeah, which is, I think, a good way to describe it for sure.
Yeah.
But I think let's say something on the top right now would be like, from the position of a spouse, loved one, what is the importance of understanding myths relative to bipolar disorder from the spouse or loved one's perspective? Do you have an answer for that one? If not, I do.
Well, I mean, I'm going to give you just the one that comes off the top of my head that I see in our Facebook group all the time, is that we're operating under the assumption that mental illness is something they can control, and that we're not looking at it like any other medical diagnosis, like cancer, diabetes, kidney failure, like anything else that they would be experiencing physically. There's still this prevailing thought, and I don't blame anyone for thinking this. I think it's a societal kind of problem right now. It's the stigma.
Yeah,
it's the stigma
100%.
of it, where we, even though even a person might have educated themselves and been like so educated on like I'll see it in the Facebook group, like, yeah, I know, you know, bipolar is a mental disorder, and I know we can't help it, and I know all this and I know all that, but they should really pull it together and meet my emotional needs and go to work. Like, no, like,
Yeah.
that's literally, I mean, you're almost there. You're halfway
close.
there. You got the education, but you haven't got the application, you know, and I think that's a prevailing myth in society.
Yes.
Is that this is largely a matter of will.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. I totally agree, because yeah, you can educate yourself, but if you don't know how to apply it, what does that do? Well, number one, it does not let you as the spouse or loved one be compassionate over judgmental about the situation. Your communication is going to be not great, right? Because you're looking or coming from a place that of two different perspectives. Like, yeah, well, you shouldn't have said XYZ. Where your person who has the illness is like, I didn't, like, they are trying to apologize or justify actions that they weren't in control over. So you're coming about it from two very different perspectives. So it's not going to be very effective, right? So, and then the other part of that is your relationship is going to suffer if you're not able to identify the myths tied to bipolar disorder, which all goes back to education again. But when you're dealing with fact, in my opinion, it allows you to support your person, and you take the emotional part and you kind of set it aside, and you recognize, like, okay, this is what's happening scientifically, biologically, like factually, this is what's happening. And if I recognize that factually, then I can handle it appropriately and not emotionally, right?
Yeah.
So I think all of those things tie into why you need to understand the myths. But here's, in my opinion, the biggest reason. If we don't stop the misinformation, if we don't stop people from continuing to spread misinformation relative to bipolar disorder, all that does is fuel shame for the individuals who have the illness.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, as the spouse to someone suffering from bipolar disorder, specifically depression, shame and guilt are the two biggest emotions that will spiral him down so fast. So I want to avoid those at all cost.
That's such a good point. I only realized that recently. And it was related to honestly hypersexuality, so I don't need to get into the details, but that's something that can elicit shame.
Yep.
And I was telling my therapist, it was completely out of the blue, and I had said something in relationship to it, and there was this like strong, over, like, unnecessary, like, bigger than what the situation prompted response. And I was just like, what? Dude, like, this is way overblown. And then when I was talking to her through it, she said that exact thing. She was like, you know, shame can kind of bubble up in a person and them not even, it like take them off guard. And then that can be like a trigger that like causes this like strong emotional response. Because of course for me, because of my hypervigilance, I'm like, oh my God, he's manic. You know, like the minute I see a response like that. Yeah, now I realize that, yeah, I think it is this shame, and them feeling that can absolutely be a trigger.
Yes. And a lot of times that feeling of shame is hidden because nobody wants to feel shameful over things.
Yeah.
But there's something that's a tie here that I think is super, super important. The shame that he might have been feeling in that moment, Laura, is also going to be tied to that same feelings of shame that he experienced from childhood forward, from teenager. Like all of that, I think, comes back, and it's like, oh, I've been here before, and this is terrible, horrible. And then it festers. Once that shame is there, it's like it just builds momentum, and it just takes control. And I will do everything I possibly can to literally stop my husband from continuing on and ruminating where he's dealing with feelings of shame and guilt, because they will spiral him down. We will go from having a great day to having intrusive thoughts in no time when we deal with guilt and shame. So if you know that as the spouse, you know that, okay, my person may not have communicated this to me, that guilt and shame are huge triggers. We're telling you there's a 99.9% chance that guilt and shame are huge triggers for your person. So don't disregard that. Don't minimize those feelings. Acknowledge them, validate them, and then do whatever you can possibly do to help that person not ruminate. And also, like Laura mentioned, when your person has like this big explosive reaction to something, no matter what it may be, I want you to think of this conversation. Could this reaction be stemmed from my person feeling guilt or shame?
Yeah. You know why it caught me off guard is because, for one, Cody, as far as we know, doesn't have BPD, borderline. And so there's not that rumination piece. I do see rumination in mania and maybe post-mania when he's kind of remembering everything. But I'm not sure I don't know. I'm not a professional, and he's not been diagnosed with it. So
sure.
I'm not sure it crosses the threshold into a BPD rumination type situation. But what I can tell you is I would have never thought shame would have ever even been on the radar, because I grew up Catholic, and Catholics love to shame you. I mean, literally, my mom says, "Shame on you." Like, she literally says that. Like, I literally was told that growing up. And so for me, I mean, I definitely, of course, felt shame. I think if you're a sensitive person, like one of my siblings, they felt it a little more than I did. It was kind of like, I mean, I'm not going to say it didn't get to me.
Sure.
You know, but I'm saying I don't think it caused me to kind of cross over this threshold. But because of that, and it was just something my grandma said, my mom said, I mean, it's a generational pattern. We all said it. You could have been shamed for something as little as not saying thank you. And they would be like, you didn't say thank you. Shame on you. They might have said it jokingly. They'd say it lightheartedly. I mean, like, but you were shamed all the time. I just tell you. So like when Cody comes into my family, I can't remember specifically something that had happened, but true to my mom's nature, you know, she was like, "Oh, Cody, shame on you." And I remember he stopped what he was doing, and he looked at her, and he started laughing hysterically, which is another, now that I look back on this, Brooke, this is another like overly like large response to something that wouldn't merit it. My mom doesn't mean anything to him. He hadn't really even known her. A stranger can't really have the ability to to shame you. I mean, maybe they can, but they don't really. It's not the same. But it was like this overly top, and he started laughing hysterically. And then he caught his breath. He's a 20-year-old, right? He catches his breath, and he's like, "Did you just try to shame me?" And she was like, well, like, she's not even realizing she does it because it's just a generational pattern that she's Catholic. And she was like, so she kind of like laughs, an uncomfortable laugh, because his reaction was so over the top, and I'm just watching this, right? And he starts laughing again, and he's like, oh, that's funny. He's like, man, that's funny. He's like, you can't shame me. And I went I would say up until 2 years ago, 3 years ago, thinking he doesn't get embarrassed. He never feels shame. I just didn't think he had that in him. Like, he doesn't get embarrassed. But you know how he handles it? If someone tries to embarrass him, he'll go bigger. Like, if you're like, hey, I can see your tummy, maybe, and we don't, you shouldn't be seeing your tummy or something. He'll be like, whoop, and he'll just flash everybody. So then, like, that's an over-the-top response to being shamed, even though it's the opposite direction of not, like, that fast and furious mad at me. So I never realized he really had it. I wouldn't have thought he had it. Had you talked to me 5 years ago, I'd be like, my husband doesn't have that, bro. I really would have said that.
The things we learn. The things we learn, right? I mean... To also pair that into context, that what was going through my head just now was like, there's no way he doesn't feel so much shame because of having a mom who has narcissistic tendencies.
Right.
There's just no way.
Why do you say that?
The humiliation that comes with having a parent that has narcissistic tendencies.
Right. That's interesting.
They will do whatever it takes to make sure they're not in the wrong.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
In front of your friends, they don't care. They're going to make themselves look even better. Like, there are so many layers to that where I can see how he grew up with it. So he's likely masking it a heck of a lot better than a lot of people do. So it makes sense to me that you wouldn't think that he had any sort of feelings of shame or embarrassment, but like, those are
learned like these coping mechanisms. So the coping mechanisms was to just amplify it. Whatever you were going to shame, he's going to amplify it now. And
except for with the person he learned it from, likely. He probably doesn't do that to the individual, the parent.
I'd have to think about that.
It's just interesting. That's how that works. But
he has this, like, in the autism literature, there's this thing called pathological avoidance disorder. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And so when they're given a direct command, it's like they have this internal something in them that wants to do the exact opposite. So if you tell them not to say something, they want to say it at you immediately. And he has that. So, like, I don't know. So, no, like, I mean, and they're two different things, but maybe off the same tree branch, or the same tree. But, like, no, he would say, like, his mom would do things like they'd be in the pool and she would be like, now, don't you get my hair wet? And he's a rambunctious boy. He's likely going to get her hair wet by just existing as a boy in a pool. And so he would just get it out of the way and do it. So the minute she'd say that, he'd be like, well, let's just get this out of the way and get her hair drenched. And then he's like, no, I don't have to worry about it.
Right. I mean, there's that. I wonder how she responded and then how he responded. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I wasn't there, so I just don't know.
Yeah.
But...
the layers are layering to me. It's like I want to know more. But also, this is somebody's drama. Like, I'm not trying to get into all that. But
no, I know.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Anyway. Okay, well, yes. So we talked about the whole understand the myths and get comfortable in that conversation with other people as much as you possibly can. If somebody, I really hate it. This is just me. When people are like, oh, the weather's so bipolar. I'm like, can we not?
Can we not?
Can we not?
Please
because
stop.
you're talking about the weather, and this is a very serious illness. And like, imagine how invalidating that is to the person, your loved one, to my husband, who of course he's going to be like, oh my gosh, Brooke, it's fine. No, it's actually not fine.
It's actually fine.
It's not fine. And I would not be okay with it. And you shouldn't be okay with it. Right. So
our words matter. Language does matter.
Yes.
I mean, I know that I do understand the people that are like free speech and like stop being thought police and blah, blah, blah. But like, even in the SPED, my area is SPED, like special education, like I've talked about before, like when we use the R word, it matters, you guys, like using the R word, like it matters. Like when you're
Please
just
don't.
calling people the R word, it's just, there are some things that I still believe in free speech, but at the same time, it matters to educate why that's why you don't say it that. And so this is one of those things too. Like bipolar is not just being happy or sad. I mean, like, my God, if it were, we would not have a whole podcast dedicated to this.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
No.
Nope. Nope.
You and I would just be living our lives and we would never have met, and this would not be a thing. I mean, I don't even know where to begin as to explain the complexities of bipolar. I think our audience, we don't have to. You know what I mean? The people who are finding us, we don't need to explain this to you, but yeah, that is just such a...
So that's a no-go. Let's not say that. But that also ties into the other myth that we hear. People with bipolar disorder are just moody.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, they're different mood states, right? But to say we're just moody, it's minimizing it. So there are differences in mood swings and clinical episodes of different poles, right? Bipolar disorder. So it's not the same.
Maybe again, this is something where terminology matters. I think it's interesting that bipolar disorder used to be called manic depressive. Manic depressive, I think that's what it was called. Yeah. Which almost is better. I don't know why they changed it. Do you?
Oh gosh, if you had asked me a while ago, I used to know. I think because they over time understood that you didn't have to also have manic and depression to be diagnosed.
Right.
There became types, so bipolar 1, 2, or rapid cycling.
Yes. Okay.
So in order to identify the polarity of the illness, they had to rename it.
Bipolar. Yes. Yep. And so like in doing so, it was almost like just saying manic depressive at least gets it two different pole states, where I'm not sure bipolar disorder, I don't know if that terminology is really doing it, because yeah, I mean, yes, it's a mood disorder. And maybe even saying that is a misnomer, honestly. I mean, because we are talking about two extremely different states of being.
Yeah. I think because personality and mood seemingly are tied together.
Right. That's right.
That's why
they had to separate the personality from the mood. That's right. Yeah, but it is because it's considered a mood disorder. People are like, oh, mood means feelings. I'm in a good mood. I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a euphoric, even those terms, euphoric, dysphoric. I mean, but like the things that take place in these episodes are literally life altering. They are literally in both depressive and mania. I mean, this is way beyond, like, does your happy mood cause you to drop 30 G's that you don't have and put your family in debt and then move to Mexico and get a lover and abandon your children? Like, and yeah,
sounds
you're
like that person is super happy.
You're super happy.
Yeah. You're living life.
Yeah, like that. Oh my God. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, and that's not a made up story. That's not my story, but that's a story from someone in my inbox.
Yep.
I don't think your happy mood causes you to do that. So
no.
Or does your depressed mood cause you to end up in a hospital where you've been, Brooke? You know, like fearing that they're not here anymore. I mean, like that is way more than just, oh, I'm feeling down. I'm having a sad day. You know, this kind of makes me go into the weather is bipolar as well. Like, you guys. Yeah. Okay, unless you're referring to the weather being bipolar, that you had a significant tornado followed by a hurricane and then a blizzard,
and the
weather's not bipolar. Okay, like when we're talking about life-altering, life-changing weather events, it's not just it was sunny and rainy.
Yeah, or 24 degrees after it was 54. Like
exactly.
You know. No, thank you.
Let's not do that.
Another myth, right? Like, which is what you were talking about earlier. They can control their moods if they really try. No. Myth. No.
No.
Even in hypomania, they cannot control the fact that they are hypomanic. It is not within their control. That also ties into this masking conversation that we have. Okay, my person is manic, but he's able to present as though he's not, she, in front of friends and family. Like, why?
Yep, we get that question a lot.
Yep. The best way I know how to describe this is by giving you this example. When you get pulled over, what are you doing? Think about it for yourself. Like, you're making sure you have all of your stuff together, and you're going to present yourself in the best possible light. Okay?
Even though you are freaking out on the inside.
Because what happens if that police officer believes that you also have drugs in your car, for example, right? You don't. In this situation, this example, there's no drugs in your car. But like, what if this police officer thinks there's drugs in my car? What could happen? I could go to jail, right? So this masking exists to make sure nothing else happens. Like, there are no consequences to that current situation.
Yes.
And I think getting pulled over is the best example of, like,
that's a great analogy. I like that analogy.
We all do it.
Yeah.
That is what masking is. And it can only last for so long. It's not sustainable. So eventually that cop's going to be like, let's go. I'm seeing what's happening here.
Yeah, very much like if you see even a person just break down in public and start crying, they have reached a tipping point where it's no longer manageable. But likely, the most likely story before you ever saw that public breakdown, if you do see it, there's been heavy masking going on until it reached that point. So that's such a great analogy, Brooke, because like it is this, they're feeling something internally that you're not seeing from our third person perspective.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
masking is a thing. It's real, but that doesn't mean that they can control their emotions. They're able to muster up the energy, and it's also exhausting. So they're able to do whatever they possibly can do in that moment to get through it. But that doesn't mean those thoughts aren't still happening. That doesn't mean that they're not still dealing with delusions and paranoia or high energy, fidgeting, whatever the case may be. Like those symptoms still are there. They're just not as presentable to the person that's around them at the moment. And the flip side of that, I think this is very important. Understand that, like, if your person is not masking at home, that's because they feel safe.
Yeah.
Masking happens, in my opinion, because it's a result of what they don't want to happen. Masking happens to avoid consequences, no matter what, real or not real consequences of the illness. So not masking means that person is exhausted.
Yes.
Mentally, physically, but also like they are trusting their environment, so they're not masking.
Yeah. The other thing too is that a lot of times we've talked about this before, we know their baseline. And so other people don't know their baseline. So if my husband walks into a room and he's the most charismatic character in there and he's having a great time and he's chatting with every single stranger and everyone loves him and he's the life of the party, I'm gonna know he's manic as hell, okay?
Right.
But like everyone else is just gonna see this gregarious, charismatic guy. He's just so great. Like, what a great time we had. And you're sitting there like, oh my God. So I mean, like,
that guy,
yeah, and that's kind of him being himself manic. If he's manic euphoric, people don't know. They don't know. The other thing that's interesting is psychosis. When he's experiencing that, like, I don't know how it relates, Brooke, but like dementia has this known thing in the research called sundowning. And sundowning is where they just get more agitated as the sun goes down. And it's like a thing. And I call it the witching hour in bipolar with psychosis, because he can act like, I mean, up until it's reached its tipping point. But leading up to a psychotic episode, he could very much present like he's not experiencing delusions. He can very much present that he doesn't think people are following him or watching him or whatever. But I know he's doing it because I know him. I know the little things. I know the the extra like look out of his eye where he thinks someone's following him or that. But it's only until like the nighttime where really, I swear, it's like the witching hour where I'm like, oh man. So I don't know what that is, but I don't know if that's masking. I don't know. But I mean, I've seen that too.
And I look at it this way too. Like if they believe that there's somebody following them, they're not going to just communicate with others that they don't know about being followed, because the people they're communicating with could also know the people that are following them. Like it's not logical.
Right. That's true. So again, it goes back to safety. It just goes back to what you're saying. He feels safe telling me because he doesn't believe I'm the one that's following him.
Correct.
Right.
And if they did believe that you're involved in the delusion, they're going to tell you.
Yeah, then just you're like the bad guy. Definitely been there.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So I think there was one in the Facebook group about thinking that they were being poisoned, right?
Yeah.
And it got worse, obviously, if the person didn't tell their person that, no, I'm not poisoning you, I wouldn't do that. Well, yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like somebody who believes they're being poisoned, if you just didn't communicate that you're not poisoning them, you're validating that you're poisoning them.
Right.
So if it was somebody else, let's say it was the waiter at a restaurant, if they believed that their food was poisoned, if they feel safe with you, they're going to tell you, I think my food's being poisoned.
Yes, that's
they're not going to tell the waiter.
Safety again.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
It's like it's harder to look at it that way, but if you do really look at it from a safety perspective, like of course they're not going to tell anybody else that they think they're being followed, because they could believe you're part of the plan. Like they're going to kidnap you. And in that case,
that's not masking. That's just telling someone you feel safe with. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just trying to like get through whatever situation that they're in, for sure.
I think the masking part, though, is so confusing, especially if you've never come across that term before. Masking is highly talked about in the autistic community. People who are autistic or autistics, whatever the term is, preferably right now, they talk about how they have to live in a society of societal norms that their neurodivergent brain does not understand. And so to understand it, they go through a lot of things such as pattern recognition. They try to study people. And like, so this is well talked about. I would say I don't know if this is true for sure, but I feel like we got this term masking from the autistic community, who's very open with it. But then once that term, like what I realized I realized many, I can't say most, I'm going to say many neurodivergent people employ masking at some point in their day. And I don't,
Absolutely.
Whether it's even like you, Brooke, being ADHD or, more severe on the autistic spectrum. But once I was like, this is a thing. People are doing this. This is a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just didn't know what it was called.
Right.
Now we have it. Now we gave it a name.
Yes.
Now we're like, oh, that makes sense. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but now I know. Yeah, that is what I was doing. Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense too. And it's
so
hard
I don't know
to
if
understand.
Do you know if there is research? Sorry, I'm going to turn on my light while I'm talking.
Oh, you're good.
Do you know if there is research on bipolar and masking? I haven't looked, but I know it's a thing.
I know it's a thing. I don't know I think maybe that's more in therapy talk.
Yeah.
Not so much in the diagnostic criteria.
Oh no, I didn't mean diagnostic criteria. I'm going to look after this and see if there's studies on bipolar and masking.
I'm sure there is.
Because the thing is, then I feel like that's why this myth prevails, is that's why people think they have control over their moods, because they see them control it in other settings. And because you see them control it in other settings, you're looking at it as control instead of masking.
Yep. And also remember that the illness has a goal. So mania has a goal every time, in my opinion. That goal, and that's why it's so ruthless. Like it'll do whatever it takes to reach that end goal. There could be 25 goals in a day, but there's still a goal. Okay. So to get through one situation where it may appear as masking could actually be the manipulation of the illness to get what it wants. And it may look like masking, but it could just be the fact that they are manipulating the person into believing they're cool, calm, and collected, and they can cash this check or get this loan. Like, if you think of it that way, like, the person is in there, but they're not in the driver's seat, and they're like, okay, we're going to go do this and get this loan. We're going to go absolutely tell this person that they're pretty. Oh, great. So here's my, like they appear as everything is all put together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not masking. Nope. In this situation.
No, that's
the
true.
illness.
Yeah. Getting its goal. Yeah, it's so true. Man, that's so true.
So it's hard to make it make sense because there are parts that are absolutely not masking. That's just the illness getting what it wants. And then there are parts where they are masking. So again, masking is not sustainable. If what is happening, day in and day out during mania looks like masking and it's again happening day in, day out, it might not be masking. That could just absolutely be how the illness is presenting in order to get what it wants.
And I think that's part of the reason we, at least in Colorado, we have something called a 72-hour hold. I forget what the actual law is that does it here, but lots of states have that. Does Tennessee have it?
Oh, it takes hell or high water to get you there.
It does take hell or high water here too. And I that's what I want to see the law change, that there's less, I'm not saying I want permanent involuntary commitment. I don't want that. I want criteria to be not a hell or high water situation because even if it still was just a 72-hour hold, even if I could just get him on a 72-hour hold even earlier than it's been in the past, they will see it. You cannot mask for 72 hours. You cannot mask that you're only sleeping 4 hours and you're convincing everyone you slept 9. And which is what he does. And he does believe it. When he sleeps for 3 to 4 hours a night, he wakes up at 4 a.m, takes 5 showers, finally calls people around 7 and tells his dad, I slept great. I slept 9 hours. Like, no, you didn't. And he believes it. You can't mask that shit.
No. That's the illness. That's not masking. For so long, that's not masking. Yeah. And that's why it's like, no, that's not the case. But again, like you're trying to rationalize or have a logical conversation with the illness. You can't. It's not going to work.
No.
I think it's hard to distinguish, like, is that masking or is that the illness? But again, ask yourself those questions. Like, has this been the same thing day in and day out? And if the answer is yes, it's likely not masking. It's not sustainable. It's just not.
Well, in either way, it goes back to the myth being they can't control it. So even though masking looks like they can control it, they can't control it. Nope. They can't. So, that is definitely a myth.
Yes. All right, a few more myths and then we'll wrap it up. But myth, once diagnosed, people can't live stable, successful lives.
Oh, well, that's why we're here, Brooke. And I want people to know, like, I just feel like in a lot of support group, and I feel like this myth, unfortunately, there's this study out here, and so if you Google what is the divorce rate and bipolar disorder, you come up with a figure that just automatically says 90%. And I used to take that as like gospel, but then I looked into it more. That's not a figure based on anything in the research. I can't remember now where it was, but I was like, wait, this actually isn't research? Because if you Google it, it seems like it is, but it's not true. And what the actual rate is, I don't know. I was not able to actually find that information, but that figure that first comes up if you Google that question is wrong.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's like based on perception.
Yeah.
Like that's where that 90% figure, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I know we may have even talked about this before, but like, that's terrible. Somebody needs to remove that from Google because that is not okay. That is not helpful.
It's really not okay. And what are people going to Google? I'm sure that term is Googled not all the time, but enough, in the bipolar community, or if you're diagnosed bipolar, if you're the spouse of someone with bipolar, and then you're going to be like, oh, wow, it's 95%. I should just cut my losses now. And I don't want that to happen to people. There is a path. There is a path. There is a way. And yes, your person also has to take part in the path. If they're not taking part in the path, there might not be a path. But what I want to say is that there can be a path when two people want it. and you learn about the illness. And so I feel like this myth is just perpetuated not only from that stupid statistic, but then also if you are a person and you go into support groups, or specifically family support groups for the Facebook groups, all you see is partners being like, my life is trash, this person's trash, this person's trash, this person's trash. And I think that's why you and I are so proud of our Facebook group, because we are committed to it not being that. If you need to vent in a respectful manner, we're going to do that. But the person is not trash because they have bipolar disorder. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing.
And we will never do that. We'll never do that. Never getting on that. And I say this with my full chest, Laura. I mean this with my full heart. Like, even if in the future something happened with me and my husband, I would still not be okay with that line of conversation. Like,
me neither.
I would still not be okay with that.
And it's because you understand it to be an illness. Yeah. So even if, like I was just at the Capitol like a month ago, and it was severe mental illness that they're classifying as schizophrenic, schizoaffective, and bipolar 1 specifically, with psychotic episodes, because they're so similar. But especially in schizophrenia, I mean, thankfully, or it seems like hell, but at least with bipolar disorder, at some point that their agnostic nausea will go away. At some point, they will come down. It's the nature of the disorder. It could take months, weeks, up to a year. They will come down. Yeah. With schizophrenia, they might never. And so these people are talking about watching her son walk away in a shopping cart saying, I'm good, Mom, I'm not sick. And he's living on the street and there's nothing she can do. At some point with bipolar disorder, they will. I had a point, though, in saying that. Because you recognize, so that's what makes it harder to recognize bipolar as significant as an illness as schizophrenia, because at some point your person will come out of it and you'll be like, see, they were just being, a jack. They were just being a jerk. And they know they were in an episode that is as severe, or can be as severe as a schizophrenic episode, but they eventually will come out of it. And it also, that's just why it adds to the myth that they can control it, because it's like, well, they're fine now. What was his problem 3 months ago? People. So that's why you would never feel that way. Even if something happened with Jeremy, you guys never got back together, God forbid, you still would have compassion over it because you recognize it as an illness.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And that's also why, we're not going to encourage people to just, run.
Right.
Do yourself a favor and run. Right. No, we're not saying those things.
No. Definitely not.
All right. One more myth. You can always tell when someone is manic or depressed.
Oh my goodness.
No, you can't. No, you can't. So just recognizing specifically, from my experience with depression. No. There are times when people in life, friends, specifically when my husband was coaching our daughters in softball, and he wasn't able to go to practice, and he would have other people run the practice for him. And then he would show up and he would have, this smile on his face and interact with people, and people would say, oh, he's, such an outgoing guy. He, not knowing that he's dying on the inside, literally would rather be anywhere but there. Okay. The more and more that people perpetuate that narrative that you're fine actually makes them feel worse, in my husband's case specifically. Because imagine feeling so bad, and bad's not even a great word for this, but feeling so hollow, so terrible, and people keep telling you you're fine. People keep invalidating.
How it's that invalidation feel. Again, like what I was talking about.
Yep. That is why that myth is so scary. Yeah. That's in my opinion, that's why.
I remember taking a trip, because I'm in the schools, you have, I used to work in the schools, and you have to take trainings on this. Because what do we do if a student is, I don't even know if we could say the S word in here, but, thinking about unaliving. So what do we do? And your tendency is to do that. It's so opposite. Everything that your tendency is to do when you're dealing with someone with mental illness is literally the opposite of what you should do. Like, you know, like
Yes.
if someone's dying from cancer, yes, you're going to be like, you've got this, keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to make it. You're going to do it. And like that's going to be your tendency. And so if you apply those same ideas to mental illness, you're already not doing the right thing, unfortunately, because it comes from a good place. But I remember taking this training being like, like they want me, if a student is saying stuff like this, to just ask them flat out. Like that was the advice. Like you have to flat out say, are you having thoughts of unaliving yourself? I was like, I don't want to give them that idea. But they already have the idea. Like they're already thinking it. So like you have to like this training, all the trainings I took was like, you have to meet it head on. Because if you don't, like that is more risky. That is more invalidating than if you meet it head on. And, you know, I've seen some like even messages between you and Jeremy, and I'm like, man, you're a strong woman, because everything you're doing is the right thing. And it seems so like not what you should be doing, but it is what you should be doing. You're validating, you're being the safe person, you're not shaming, you're listening, like with like, it's incredible how you do it. I've talked about before, Cody doesn't deal with that side of bipolar disorder. If he did, I would learn it. I would try to be as good as Brooke as you are. I don't know if I can do it.
I mean, it wasn't always like this. Okay. It was not always like this.
Hard.
It took a lot of learning.
So hard.
It is. And it's scary as shit, frankly. Yeah. I mean, and until you like, you know, take that step over the threshold, it's not that it's not always scary, but it just becomes an action plan of like, okay, what level are we dealing with? Like, how scary is this? And again,
if we're scared, imagine how you make them feel. If that's my response as like the supportive partner, it's like, holy shit.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, are you thinking this? Like, you know, level 1, call an ambulance. And it's not like there's different levels to it. There's different severities to it. Well, then you're not a safe person again.
Yeah. So guess what? They're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you they're having these thoughts in the future. If your response is immediately call an ambulance, that's not safe. That's not safe at all. Yeah. So that whole scenario that you just went through, Laura, is literally like the fostering this whole suffering in silence. Yeah. That's what happens when you're surrounded by individuals who constantly and unknowingly invalidate your experience or their feelings. Like, okay, well, I'm not saying that again. That got me in trouble, or that got me sent to the hospital, or that got me, you know, it doesn't make them feel better. All it does is make them feel worse. So like, okay, well, we're going to suffer in silence now. We're not talking about this anymore. And with depression, you really can't do that. Yeah. The more voice you give it, the less power it has. That is why, in my opinion, the direction is you hit it face on. Right. You make that person express their plan, how they're feeling, what those thoughts are, because they have less power out loud. They just do.
Interesting. I think you've said that before, but I always need to hear it more to sink in. Like the words have less power when you say them out loud. You've said that before. Yep.
Which is actually opposite of like, let me tell you how I feel.
Yeah.
Like when you're telling Cody how you feel, like you're excited about how you say them, like you're passionate and they feel powerful, right? Yeah. Which it's the opposite. What if you're trying to express, think about it this way, like what if you're trying to tell somebody your deepest, darkest secret that you're not proud of? Once it's out, you're like, oh, I don't have to keep that. Like I don't have to hold all that weight anymore.
I've actually had that experience with Cody. I've never really I've told him things I haven't told any other human being on the face of the planet. And just having him know and it be safe and out there alleviates me of carrying it anymore. Yep. I'm like, oh, that wasn't that bad. He still loves me.
That bad. Yeah.
So I'm okay.
Yeah. And if those thoughts are bad and we're like, okay, but my plan is to blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, like, am I really gonna do whatever plan is?
That's so interesting.
It actually makes you just pause.
Yeah.
And the more you say it, the less like, I don't want to say real it becomes, but the less power it has in your head.
It's the less power. If I relate it to myself, in that situation where I mean, I've never been unaliving. It's not that level. But I'm just
Right,
saying
right,
something that I wasn't proud of and I never told any other human being but him.
right.
Once it was out there in the ether and he held it and had no judgment, I was like, oh, why was I so like worried about this? Like, why did I carry so much shame around this?
Yep.
When he
And it
still is
didn't
like,
take up as much space up here.
yeah,
It
exactly.
just became this like, oh, okay. And it's not that it isn't meaningful. It just doesn't hold so much power over you. It's just an interesting dynamic. But I guess again, it has to do with like those feelings of shame. Are you going to be judged?
Yeah.
Is it true? Are you going to hold it against me if I don't do it? Also, are you going to judge me because I'm saying it out loud? Like all those things
Yeah.
factor in. But when they're said and they're met with, again, we're validating the feeling. We're not
Yes.
validating the
Right.
action or behavior,
Right.
right? That it's like, oh, so I'm not alone in how I feel. And like
Yeah.
other people feel this way. And it's okay that I feel this way. Like I don't need to be like put on a stretcher.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Okay. So it just becomes, less. It's less for that person to hold.
Yeah. So good, Brooke. Oh my gosh. I mean, we could even do a part 2 of myths. I feel like you could
For
just
sure.
go on and on. I feel like we
On
did
and on and on.
hit a lot of them though.
Yeah, I think we did. I really do. Oh, one more. I think this has to be said. Bipolar means that you're dangerous or unpredictable.
Ooh,
I don't
this
really
is
like
a
the
good one.
unpredictable side. That kind of comes with territory. But to associate being dangerous specifically, I think that's something like, okay, yeah, no, you can't just put that umbrella out there. Like everybody with bipolar is dangerous. No, I don't think that's a fair overgeneralization in the slightest. Would you agree?
I do, and I always struggle with this one because since Cody operates on more of the manic psychotic side of life and he's, over 200 pounds and 5'11, I mean, like the impulsivity for him ends up making him dangerous, unfortunately. Like, you don't know what he's
To
going to.
himself or to others?
I mean, to both. Like, even if he was
Okay.
driving his 3-ton truck at 80 miles an hour, I mean, on a 30
Yeah.
mile road, I mean, that's not safe. Like, that's a danger to others. Cops don't see it that way, by the way.
Sure.
Called them. They
Sure.
were
No,
like,
of course not.
if we catch him, we catch him. But that's not really a mental health crisis. Thing that I feel like I struggle with that because of me personally, but I have read the research on
Oh, okay.
mental illness and being dangerous. And by far, research is very clear consistently that people with mental illness are more likely to be victims of crimes than they are to actually perpetrate them. That is corroborated over and over and over and over in the literature. I
Yeah.
do. And so in Cody's scenario, I do think that it does still there's debate on this. This is actually a very controversial topic, and I see people get very heated about this because the research is clear that that's the case, but there is this subset of the population who can get dangerous. And if
Yeah.
they are going to get dangerous, you need to protect yourself. Like shit, like things can happen. And that needs to be acknowledged too. It's like you
Sure.
say, two things can be true at the same time. So it is
Yep.
very much true that people with mental illness are more likely to be victims, but it is also true that there is a subset of the population that can become dangerous. And unfortunately, it's that small. Even in Cody, I've never felt directly in harm of him. I felt
Yeah.
indirectly, like we're leaving burners on the house. We're driving at 80 miles an hour in a 3-ton truck on a 30-mile, it's an indirect threat to me.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
I got to keep everyone safe and I got to remove my family from the home. But there is instances, and then those are the ones that make the news, where the person became dangerous and then by some horror committed, some sort of
Yeah.
violent act. Like, that is true too. And so I
Sure.
don't want
Sure.
that to be the stereotype. And unfortunately it is. Unfortunately
Yeah.
it is. But the
Yep.
research shows that that's not actually the largest subset of this population. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
myth is a hard one for me.
Okay. I see where you're at with this. So the myth, in my opinion, can be debunked by explaining using maybe the line of thought of it's based on that person's specific brand of bipolar.
Ooh.
So to say that everyone with a bipolar disorder diagnosis is dangerous, is false. That's false.
Absolutely.
But there are individuals who have this diagnosis who present in ways that can be dangerous to others and themselves.
Yes.
I think that helps too.
That does. That's a perfect way to say it. Yeah, to say all individuals with bipolar disorder are dangerous is categorically false.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. That's the myth.
Yes. Perfect.
There are people that have it. I don't know. That was kind of a little bit of a fun one for us because we hear, the Dr. Jekyll and Hyde situation. Like, that's what I thought bipolar was from years and years ago. Does that make sense? Like, it's still a little applicable, but like not even close.
But you understand where it's coming from. I definitely have a video that it still gets likes to this day on TikTok. And I say exactly that. Where I say that like, it does feel like you're living with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but people don't understand that analogy as much anymore. But I have this husband who is the most loving, amazing, supportive partner. And then when he's in an episode, he is like the meaniest, nastiest, hits below the beltiest of people. But what I should have said in that video, and I mean, that was more of a clickbait video. Honestly, I was just doing a viral video. But if I would explain that video, it's that the episode, it's separating your person from the illness. The illness is the nastiest, meanest. Like that person, that illness, I don't know. But my husband is still there, and he is still. And if you're in a situation, I feel like we have to say this all the time because this always comes up. Brooke and I will be like, once you get to know your person, you'll get to know their episodes, and like we understand their baseline, and that's how we understand the episodes. And they'll be like, well, my person's mean even when they're not manic. Guys, if your person is mean and they are not a good partner to you, even when they are out of episodes, you might be dealing with more than bipolar. Please. My husband and Brooke's husband are amazing, supportive, wonderful, caring partners, people, fathers, men. Like when, like, that's how we can separate. That's why you're like, why does it seem so easy that Brooke and Laura can separate the illness? I can't, because he's mean all the time. My husband is not mean all the time. If he did not have bipolar, I feel like we would never fight. I'm not even exaggerating. Oh,
I'd fight. We would fight for sure. Just simply because we would argue, not fight, but we would definitely argue about certain things because we're opposite in so many ways. But like, he's still my best friend. He's
even if you're arguing, it's with respect and you're coming to common ground. So it's not that same thing. So, I mean, I just feel like we always have to say that because like you can be dealing with something else that's bipolar plus, something else. So.
Yeah. I mean, my husband also has BPD and OCD.
Yes.
So having borderline personality disorder also adds to the mix here. But I'll put myself out on a limb and tell you this because I think it's crucial. If my husband was mean 24/7 and I wasn't receiving love in the way that I needed to receive love, if I wasn't benefiting from our relationship and the benefit only served him, I would no longer be in this relationship.
Right. There you go.
Period. Like.
And outside of episodes, you understand you're not going to be, we talked about this last time. We can't expect them to be emotionally available to us when they're in an episode. So outside of episodes, like you understand the difference. So if you are, the other thing that gets tricky though is that narcissism can also cycle, like the love bomb and then the pull away and then like whatever it is, I don't know. Like I just watched narcissistic TikTok. I know there's a cycle. Yeah. So I know that there's also this cycle with them where they're nice and then mean and nice and then mean and like, I don't know. I mean, like it does really, I don't know. I could be a psychologist. So could you. We love looking at this stuff. But I mean, it does get tricky, but you guys, like, I don't know. Like, bipolar is so obvious. It's like, it's just, once you get to know your person, I know when I'm talking to the illness and when I'm talking to Cody, and they are two completely separate things.
Yep. 100%. 100%. And, if you're not 100% comfortable with your baseline for your person, like, that's okay. That's okay. Right. But what we're saying is like, recognize that when you started engaging in a relationship with your person, like, it's likely they weren't mean and manic. Okay.
Yes. That's why you fell in love with them.
Yes. They could have been manic and happy, but like,
true,
not the mean side, right? So at some point that ended, okay? At some point that episode stopped. And from that forward, that can also feel like my person is mean if it started with all the great lovey-dovey perfect stuff. That can also feel mean. But if that's their baseline and that doesn't work for you, that relationship is not going to work for you. Like,
right.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like, that's not going to work for you. That wouldn't work for me, you know? And that's hard to say in the space of like, here's the umbrella that I get caught in sometimes. Like, yeah, but like, I don't want to leave them because they have bipolar disorder. That's not why you're leaving them. I need you all to realize this. Like, leaving that relationship isn't because of the illness 99% of the time. It's as a result of like what's happening when that person is stable, where you all can't find common ground, where you all can't repair and move forward. Where, oh, well, the person I thought you were isn't actually who you were because you were, experiencing mania before. Like, there's no chemistry, there's no connection, whatever. You're not leaving because they have a diagnosed mental illness.
Yeah.
If that helps you see and get some clarity on that relationship, great. Because in any relationship, you shouldn't feel guilty for acknowledging that it doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
Like, you're allowed for it not to work for you.
Yes.
We could talk about this for ages, so I'll shut up now. But anyway, another, as always, great episode. And the Laura and Brooke spin and, side trails that we tend to go down.
our little side track diversions, but,
That's how we roll. Indeed.
It is how we roll. Someone had written, though, that it was refreshing to hear just perspectives that weren't like a psychologist or doctor kind of telling you the clinical perspective, but also like just giving you like, this is how it manifests for us. This is what it looks like for me. Like, this is what it looks like for you. Like, we're just being real with you. This is literally our real life. This is my real life. That's why I like starting our podcast now with talking about our life, because this is life. This is our real life.
This is life. It's Mother's Day and we're recording a podcast.
Yeah. And our husbands are always going to have bipolar disorder. That's not going away. Yep. They're always going to have it. So it's living life with it alongside them, and kind of just, like what we're doing and what we're learning and what's working. And that's what it is. Right, Brooke?
Yep. And what doesn't work. And here we are. We're just figuring it out. That's what we're doing. Figuring it out.
So we don't have all the answers.
As best we can. All right, everybody. Well, as always, episodes drop every other week on Wednesdays. You can find us on Spotify, on YouTube at BipolarLines and BipolarLines Pod. Join the Facebook group, BipolarLines Pod. Again, we have a lot of new members all the time.
That group has popped off.
For real.
It's less than 300 people, but that group is strong.
That's how we roll. We're strong people. Right? There's that strong word again. No. Anyway, check us out there. And what else? You can find me on TikTok at break_the_stigma.
And you can find me on TikTok at the BP spouse.
As always, thank you all so much for being here, for showing up for your person. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Music is written and produced by Barry Jolly. All rights reserved.